All right, we got Brian Barney on. I'm pulling up my notes, my questions. I just drove down to Ennis, where you live, and we're sitting in Brian's garage, which has kind of been the vibe for the podcast. So we drug him out of his office, and yeah, how long have you been running the Eastman's Elevated podcast for now?
We're in our 10th year now.
Dang, so Brian's a pro.
I don't know about that. Yeah, I still make a bunch of mistakes, but we put audio out, yes.
So how many episodes deep are you then?
We're
Like,
working
total?
towards 500, I think maybe 480 episodes. And then I've probably been the guest on another couple hundred episodes. So,
Oh.
yeah, we're getting up there.
I know, like, listening to Joe Rogan, which seems very like white girl, just like everybody does. But obviously he talks about just learning how to communicate with people and talk with people. Like, have you noticed a big shift in how you approach conversations with people and like your ability to communicate via the 500-600 episodes that you've sat in on now? Or
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a skill that when you use it and when you're on so many podcasts and have so many conversations, you get better at it. So I see it in all facets of my life too. Just communication with my wife, even
Yeah.
communication with clients in the construction company, and then conversations, like meeting people where it can be awkward for the first time. Like I'm more comfortable in those situations. So yeah, I definitely see it. It improves the way I communicate with people.
Nice. Yeah, so I'm down here today just ripping a podcast with Barney, and then we're going to actually sneak out and do a little bit of fishing. We'll be putting a camera on Brian and Dylan Ness this spring and see if they can land some big dogs. So today's kind of day one of just getting back on the river. I'm going to get comfortable with the camera, and you guys are going to try to rope a few browns, hopefully. So
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I'm stoked to put this deal together. Yeah, we've been chasing these things for quite a few years together now, and have these systems pretty dialed that we fish. And so, yeah, we're gonna try to land some big browns in Montana and show what this state is capable of. Is the goal.
yeah, which is probably going to throw people for a little bit of a loop. They probably see Brian Barney and think we'll be just talking about bow hunting the whole time, which we'll definitely get into. But seems like you're pretty into spring fishing and fishing in general, but I think spring's probably like your time of the year to really lean into it.
Yeah, it sure
Is that your favorite time, or is that just the best time with your schedule as a hunter?
I think it's my favorite time. Like I definitely like summer fishing and I like fishing hatches, but just the off seasons in Montana where you don't have all the guide boats on, where
Yeah.
the fish are, the browns are just getting done with their spawn and they're pretty hungry. And I just like to chase big ones, whether it's with a bow or with a fly rod. Like that's what fires me up. And so our systems around Montana produce great fish, but they act a little bit different than an 18-incher. Their food source and where they live, where they hold at, and so it's just been like a lifelong goal of chasing these big ones. And it's like anything you do, whether it's podcasting, filming, whether it's bow hunting or fly fishing, like you continue to learn and improve and evolve. And so we've really got our system dialed. We see like great adventure in the spring, and so yeah, it is my favorite time of year to chase them.
Yeah, and you live in a spot that's pretty world renowned for fishing and fly fishing with the Madison in your backyard. How long have you lived here in the valley?
I moved to the Madison in 1999.
Okay.
Yep, right before Y2K and everything crashed.
Yeah,
Actually, nothing happened.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I know.
it's like everybody was spooked about it.
I do remember that. There were a lot of people stocking up on serious supplies, and then it was just like, oh, it's another day.
The Mayan calendar ran out, and like all the computers were going to shut down, and then nothing happened.
That's pretty funny actually to think back on, because like it was, I guess, another example of how uneducated the general public is on things, and we've seen it again here recently with COVID. But as far as the Madison goes, I mean, I'm not really in the weeds too deep on all the talk about how it needs to be managed and regulated. And I know there's been some different proposals and working groups, and people are trying to figure out like how do we manage numbers. But how different does the Madison look today versus 20 years ago when you moved here? Or has it changed much? I mean, I feel like a lot of places, they don't really change quite as much as people think, but I'm interested to see how you are viewing like the Madison and the Valley here, and
Hmm.
as far as the fishery is concerned, at least.
Yeah, I feel similar to you. Like I don't know that it's really changed a whole lot, or maybe I've just gotten better over the
Yeah.
years as well. We did see some big fish like in the beginning of being here and just lucked into them. Where now you have to work pretty hard. So, it's a high pressure river, but I really don't mind high pressure spots. I don't, they're high pressure for a reason because it's
Mm-hmm.
good fishing and there's big fish in there and everybody wants a turn and wants a chance at them. And so I do really good here in the off season. I do really good with my knowledge around this river, and salmon fly hatch gets crazy around here, but I've been doing it for 25 years. So I just know the times to be on the river. I know the floats. I know how to dial in the bugs. So even though there's 100 boats going down, I still see just absolute epic fishing on this
Yeah.
thing. So I think it's a knowledge, and I think the guys that don't do well on it like to sit back and complain about it, where it's a healthy, strong fishery. There's a bunch of fish in it and a bunch of good fish in it. And so, yeah, I really don't see any issues. Like, I think we're going to have to adapt and change a bit as time goes on, and look out for some of the locals or some of the unguided guys, by giving, like, the big hole management is a perfect example where you
Mm-hmm.
have certain days and certain floats that only locals can float. Like, I think that would be nice, and not just for myself. I think for other guys out here, like a lot of guys just give up fishing it.
Yeah.
They just get their butt kicked on it, and the Madison can kick your butt any given Sunday on that
It's
thing,
kicked my butt plenty of
Yeah,
days.
yeah, mine too. Yeah, it's just the way that river is. Whether the fish are off the bite, whether your timing was off, whether you don't have the right stuff on. So I think guys get frustrated and like to blame it on the pressure, but I still think it's like a great, strong fishery. We saw like a 27-inch out of there last year, and a bunch of a handful of 24 plus fish. Like they're still in there, and we'll see today. Like it'll be good fishing as long as the ice comes off, and we'll be the only guys on the river. So I really like to
Yeah.
hit it off season, but I still think it's a strong fishery.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I know that. Yeah. It seems like there's so many diverse kind of situations that occur when it comes to fishing and hunting and the landscape and pressure. And like, I really haven't found a good way, I think, to like really get to the bottom of like a lot of these issues without being one of the avid users of like that specific resource.
Mhm.
And I feel like conservation in fishing and in hunting, it's kind of like a push down your throat mentality, which is good. We definitely need people out there fighting and championing, like for the resources. But it seems like it's so difficult to really know. I mean, even you could say the same thing, I guess, for just like social issues in our country. Like, how do you get to the bottom of the issue and really know what's going on? Which I think is like the biggest challenge for areas that maybe do need to be conserved better or managed better, which I feel like in general, we're doing a pretty good job, other than I guess if I had to pick two items to kind of take shots at, I think the grizzly bear management and our mule deer numbers or quality would be my two biggest beefs. But in general, I feel like we're doing a good job. Yeah, being an avid sportsman, it's like you want to just naturally be involved, but then it just feels so challenging sometimes to get to the bottom of it without
That's it.
spending so much time, to research and talk to people. And I don't know if it's me not having enough time spent with and around some of these conservation organizations to know that they're actually doing all that and providing that to people, but it still seems challenging for me to like, other than maybe the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, to really know what some of these agencies are doing or what their communication to the general public is, which is kind of a little bit of a tangent. I didn't really plan on getting into conservation, but yeah, Like we've always thought about it from Montana Wild's perspective of like, if you're a passionate hunter or fisherman, you want to protect the resource because you value it. You know, if you're out there chasing a quality fish or a quality animal, like you don't want to see that go away. Mm-hmm. Like you're naturally activated to be conservation minded, but how do you actually apply that? You know, is the really challenging part. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. You're spot on. I'm an optimist, and for a long time, I'd bury my head in the sand, and I just go enjoy what's out there for me. Like, I love public lands, public resources. I love that if you go out there and you go spend the time, like, I still feel like there's great opportunity for fishing, for hunting. And so for a lot of years, I would just kind of not pay attention to much, not be involved, and then just go out and enjoy the resource, and definitely like trying to protect it, or like self-policing, to make sure that I'm saving older age class. And, Montana, we do manage for opportunity. And so we have long liberal seasons, which are great. It's fun to take part in the mule deer rut, but you also know that, there's a downside to it. Well, but there's so many factors. It's like for a long time, Montana could sustain that, but we have so many people moving to Montana that are getting resident tags. We sell so many non-resident tags. And then for like the mule deer, like we don't, like our valley suffers, our mule deer do, and there's so many factors. The elk outcompete them for the food source. Like they compete for the same grasses, same food source. The other part of it is we give so many combination tags to non-residents, and so many elk hunters are here in the valley. And if they don't find an elk, the first mule deer they see, they shoot. And so it'd be nice to change the management up a little bit. And I think that Mule Deer Special Advisory Council is great. And like out east, like the population, it was just a few years ago, there was so many 5 and 6 year old bucks running around, or 4 and 5 year old bucks. Like it was doing so good. But then drought hit. And then on top of that, the mule deer harvest on top of that, like decimated the mule deer numbers out there, But now it's like I saw more 2 and 3 year old bucks this year and a handful of 4 and 5 year olds. So they're coming back due to the fawn recruitment, due to getting out of this drought, due to mild winters. And so, yeah, it's really tough to put your thumb on it. I try to inform my audience about things that are coming up, important items to me, and I try to be involved and be in the meetings or give my 2 cents about it. Like I feel like I really stick up for bow hunters, and so I try to throw my 2 cents in there as a recreationalist. Like I like for fishing and for hunting, try to be more involved, not just bury my head in the sand. But man, it is tough to dial in. It's tough to know exactly what's causing it, and it feels like I'm always fighting for me personally, almost. Like I'm fighting for the bow hunting. Yeah. I'm fighting for the seasons that I like to hunt, but I'm also trying to look out for the resource and educate other people. But man, it's tough.
Yeah, I think we're all fighting for ourselves when it comes to that. I mean,
that's kind of the problem.
It's pretty hard to not be selfish when it comes to hunting and fishing. They're kind of inherently, depending on your level of it, but it's a selfish activity in a lot of ways, I think, which is okay, as long as there's benefit associated with that. Back to the spring fishing, because I distracted the conversation there a little bit.
Thank God. Let's get back to fishing.
Let's get back to roping hogs.
Yeah, totally.
So living in Missoula, when I first started my fly fishing journey, I wade fished a lot. Didn't have a boat. The rivers over there really kind of were better suited in certain ways for wade fishing. And then over here in southwest Montana, obviously you can still wade fish, but it's a very boat heavy, I feel like, area. What's your preference on the two, and pros and cons? And I feel like here I generally use the boat more than maybe I should, because it is, when you think back, at least for me, on all the times I spent wade fishing, like there's a lot of holes where it wasn't the first few casts through there that I caught a fish. And, a lot of time when you're floating down a river in a boat, you're only getting a shot or maybe 2 in spots, which is cool. You get to cover so much more water, but I just wondering how you view that and what your preference is, at least as far as spring fishing goes.
Yeah. I definitely like to cover water, and if you have somebody that's good on the sticks and good in the boat and a good partner to fish with, it's like a good way to cover it. But I am partial to wade fishing. I fish a lot by myself, and wade fishing, I can just get out for an afternoon, and I feel like you dissect the water better. Like you find all the hides where all the fish are. You get to really work the holes and see what's in there. You're like more thorough in a stretch of water.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of use like a hybrid system for, well, all rivers I fish, but you'll see it today on the Madison. We're not going to cover a bunch of water. We probably won't get many out of the boat. It's all the spots that we stop and we work the water and work it for a dozen drifts or a couple dozen drifts, or work the streamer through and then work a nymph setup through. So I really use a combination of that. And I think, I love going down in the boat, covering a bunch of water. You're like, you get such a good look at like those bank holes and those small spots that fish can be in. But I think for some of these bigger wintertime runs, as we're, just coming out of, well, we're not even in spring, we're like late winter right now. And so, like, I think they sit in a lot of the big water right now where it makes sense to get out and work them. And even as we start to fish other systems around, we'll still get out and work good holes that are likely holding water, and we pick up a lot on the wade, which is surprising, when you're fishing streamers and going down and covering water. But we kind of run a hybrid system, really, and I would wade fish more. The thing that stops me is just the access, and we do have high water marks that we can go down, but it just gets dicey with some of these ranches and private property and islands. And then the Madison, if you don't know, like, you can bust your ass on those slick rocks going down
for
through,
sure.
and so like when you're trying to like high water, and then like a lot of times to get to the hole I want to fish, it's a mile or a mile and a half. It's not just fishing 200 yards down from the takeout. So that's like the challenging thing in Montana wade fishing. And there is public spots to go, and we do have public access, but that's why I tend to use the boat, is just for access, and then to get out and wade a bunch of these spots. But definitely a hybrid system.
Have you had any negative encounters with landowners when you've been wade fishing?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like that.
How would you propose people defuse those situations? Because I think they're going to be more and more. We see more people wanting to try or think that they own places, and I'm sure, I know in my past I've definitely crossed the line of high water mark to get to a spot. I think a lot of people probably at some point do, and so there's always that potential for conflict with landowners. But how do you think the best way to handle that is?
I think if you try to go about it with the best intentions and doing it the right way, and it's tough, like, where are you, like ordinary high water, like, is a tough defining mark as well. It's like we have gorge ice, we have water that comes up, we have high water in the spring, and so it's a bit of a gray area. And so I think you just try to do the right thing, and then try not to get too upset. Like, I'm not going to get anywhere arguing with somebody. They've already made up their mind. But some of that stuff up by $3 Bridge and that, it'll like go through public and then cross little sections of private. And those little sections of private, those people feel like is their private fishing water. And they don't want anybody to trespass anywhere on it. And so my feet are wet. I'm walking through it the whole time, and somebody wants to come tell me that I'm in the wrong. And I just smile and I just give them man, I'm in high water. I'm doing all I can do. Like, I'm just moving through. You can fish this water. But they also get upset that I'm walking the edge where they're fishing. It's like, well, choose what you want me to do. If you want me to walk and give you this hole, I'm happy to do that. But the rules say that I have to be in high water. So I'm sorry, I have to walk right behind you where fish are holding. But I just try to smile, and I don't get too excited. And I try to keep in the right. I try to get to where I feel confident and comfortable in what I'm doing, that if a game warden was to be right there watching me, that he would be fine with what I'm doing. And then I just smile and try not to get too excited or in some argument with somebody that I'm not going to change their mind anyways. And so there's been a handful of conflict here and there, but nothing really major. It's people are usually pretty friendly. It's some of these people that think they have their private fishing ground that get the most upset by it. And it's just like, man, it's a public river, and it's for all of us to use, and you can't stop me from coming here. And so I don't know, that's kind of how I feel on it.
For sure. Is there anything as far as your setup, fly rods, line, reels, anything that's outside kind of the norm that you do for targeting big fish in the spring, or is it kind of just standard stuff?
Um, it's fairly standard. Use a sink tip line. You get pretty dialed at like your systems and the bugs that we like, and
Mm-hmm.
so like I'm running a 3 foot leader, which is fairly short on a sink tip to make sure that I get my bug down there. I'm using bugs that get down a bit, but the reality is like the bugs come over their heads wherever we're fishing. Like they have to decide to eat it. And
Yeah.
so, I think like there's so much to it, right? The angle out of the boat, the angle you retrieve. It's not just like pulling the rope of stripping in. It's like really dancing that bug with the tip of the rod. Do like a jig strip or like a jig pop, and so really getting that stop of that bug and that start again. And it's wild, man. You can fish somebody with the same bug, and you think you're doing the same retrieve, and somebody just catches all the fish.
Mm-hmm.
As I bring the bug in, I do like a walleye turn on it. That's something that most guys don't do, or like a pike turn, I guess. They do
Yeah.
a figure eight when they get to the boat. I don't quite do that, but as I get it in, I catch sight of my bug to make sure no fish are trailing it, and then I totally switch directions with the bug, like 180 degrees or maybe 120 degrees with the bug, and watch that bug as I move it. And man, that turn, we call it the turn, it gets so many fish on the turn. It's crazy. And so that's like one of my biggest moves I do is always giving it the turn, and those
Yeah.
fish will strike on it. Nymph setups, like really dialing in length of leader. It's all about getting the right drift and the right float where you may tick bottom, but you're not dragging on bottom. And so you do that by adjusting your leader length, adjusting your weight. And I've just been doing it so long. Like it's different for every hole you fish. So you have to find something that works universal, but then you get in a hole and just adding a weight. And you went from catching 0 fish to all of a sudden you knock down 6 in that hole. So
Yeah.
like really dialing in the presentation and the way we fish it, and then dialing in the colors of the bugs and the patterns. Like me and Dylan have both just been crazy on the Vice lately, sending each
Nice.
other pictures of bugs and which patterns work, changing colors, movement, bringing it lifelike, triple articulating bugs. So we're really into it, and I think it makes a difference. Getting that strike from that big brown, like fooling them when you bring
Yeah.
it over them.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm glad that you guys were game to work on this film project because I love spring fishing. Like that's always been our favorite. I think that's the best time for both numbers and quality of fish. It also benefits us being locals. I don't know that you have to be a local, but it's definitely a lot riskier to plan a trip to Montana in the spring because like there's just bad times to be here. But yeah, I'm excited to just film with you guys, and hopefully, I think everything will go exactly how we all see it going in our heads. But Brian and Dylan kind of target some of the same water that I've kind of spent some time on. They've definitely done a much better job of putting in the time and catching the bigger fish than me. I've just been catching all the ones that they kind of like, meh, yeah, that's a nice one, and throw back in. I'm usually like, yeah, like, okay, we're doing good today. And then I'll see these guys' photos and they did better, which is cool because I'm like, hey, I kind of need to run the camera anyway. So let me come with you guys and let's like really throw down on this. So I'm pretty pumped for that. So hopefully today we can kick it off with like a little bit of hot fire footage too.
Yeah, we will. It's gonna be really fun to capture. I was really excited. Like you're a friend, we see you on the water and things, but to put something together, try to capture this lightning in a bottle, and I think it'll be educational. I also think it'll be really entertaining, and then you're so talented. Like you're. It's nice to be going with one of the bros, one of the guys that gets
Yeah.
bulls, that gets fish, that gets the whole thing that we're trying to do. It's not just a young cameraman that that doesn't know what's going on. And so, your edits are next level, your film work is next level. And just like the podcast we were talking before we hit record, like you don't do anything half-assed. Like you were
Yeah.
all in all the
Yeah.
time. So you were like the perfect pick for this. And like I just like we've been acquaintances, but yeah, I think you fit into the group really well, and it'll be really fun to team up with you and capture some of this stuff. And
Yeah.
man, I think we're gonna get lightning in a bottle.
Oh, it's going to be sweet. Yeah, I think that's kind of the secret sauce a little bit for making good content in the outdoor space is really just the dynamic of the individuals that are associated with it. And, even when I went and worked at Stone Glacier, that was a big benefit is knowing the guys that are in the know, that are doing the things, and working with guys who are good behind the camera that are in the know also. So that when we go out on the river or we go into the mountains, the guy that's running camera, he's an asset to the whole like excursion. And he understands the intricacies of like being the guy in the front of the boat or being the guy that's full draw 30 yards from a screaming bull and knows kind of what things really resonate in those experiences and tries to capture it through like the lens. So yeah, when you put all the pieces together and like build it like a good foundation, like it's hard to not have a good project at the end of it. So I'm pumped.
That makes sense.
I'm thinking that'll be one of probably many, but we'll get through the first one first. Obviously you're super well known for being a bow hunter. I'd say that you're probably, one of the most consistently successful bow hunters. You probably are in that top percentile of guys who spend, a lot of days just bow hunting. One thing, I don't have kids or a family yet, but I think a lot of people are like, how do they manage their job and their family and get a bow hunt that much? And I'm sure you probably have some wisdom there on how to keep the balance, but still be passionate about bow hunting and putting the time in, because it's kind of an activity that you can't really half-ass and be successful at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. It's like a direct correlation between the time you spend in the field and the animals that you harvest, the knowledge that you obtain, like really working at your craft and being committed to improving all facets of it from, so just like you stated, you have to be all in. I think the way I go about it, I have a really good partner that's really supportive and has been from the beginning. She knows how important it is to me. She knows it's my passion and knows that I love adventure. And so, like how I balance that is I spend a lot of time in the field. She definitely covers for me and takes care of the household and makes sure the kids are everywhere they need to go. And I think like my best advice is like I just have these honest and open conversations with her and my family, and you're also like you're teaching your kids to follow their passion and follow their love, and you're living your absolute best life. But they see me out running, they see me shooting my bow, they see me spending these days or get to watch films of me bow hunting and even come along with me on these adventures. And so the thing I really try to do is I try to be present with them. I try to, like my one daughter, I started fairly young, so my kids are older now. They're 21 and 17.
Yeah.
So they've kind of built their own lives as well as friends and sports, and definitely dad and family is part of that, and outdoors is part of that. But they have a whole life that's multifaceted as well. And so what I really try to do is just try to be present with them. It's like when I get home from work, I don't bring home work with me.
Yeah.
I put my phone on my nightstand and we eat dinner together every night. I laugh with them. I joke with them. We may watch shows together. We may have a challenge at night on a balance board or on I just try to be present, and then I try to have like these in-depth conversations about their life and where they're going and what's important to them, work ethic, and I try to lead by example, but also lead by these in-depth conversations that I have with them and really build this connection with them. And so they know that when I'm home, like they have my full attention. And they also know like I may be gone flying all over or traveling all over the country, flying all over the world and be bow hunting. But they also know in the off season I'm going to be planning trips with them, and we're going to go have adventures together. And whether that's a hunting or a camping adventure, or whether we're going to the beach or doing something like that, like I plan these trips, and it's important for me to spend this quality time with them. And so I'm able to balance it fairly well. Like I feel like I'm a good dad and a good husband. I also feel like I get to chase my wildest dreams out in the woods, and I feel like they have their complete and total support. And I also have flexibility. If I need to buy myself a couple days, I can make one phone call or one text, and it's like, well, have fun. We'll see you in a couple days,
Yeah.
And so they're able to kind of manage without me. And it also builds self sufficient skills. Like my daughter
Hmm.
watches these chickens at these people's house while they're gone at wrestling or whatever. And
Yeah.
I was gone at the expo the last weekend, and she got stuck out there. She had all her winter clothes in. She had her shovel in her car. She shoveled herself out. She felt
Nice.
calm, got herself unburied, got home. She couldn't feed the chickens. It was drifted in. She made the call to not go up there. But I build self sufficient humans as
Yeah. Yeah.
well that can manage and take care of themselves.
Yeah. That's cool. I think that's a side of our industry that doesn't really get, a lot of guys don't show it or talk about it too much. And I think people wonder about it just because so many people fight for the limited time that they get.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of people are like, how does so-and-so, like get to be out in the field that much? And I think people want to cast judgment. Like Cameron Haynes is probably a good example. A lot of people that have talked crap on Cam and know nothing about, his actual personal life.
Hmm.
Which I think he's probably showing more of that now that his kids are older and being involved. And I know he had his wife on the podcast. So it's always cool, for me at least, to like see how people manage their life. Because I think hunting is a passion of mine. It's something that I love doing, but, it can be an addiction. And, making sure you're a good human being at the end of the day is priority number one. So it sounds like you're doing a pretty good job of prioritizing everything. And yeah, I think it is important to be an example to your kids and show them that they can be passionate about things in life. There's a lot of people that once they have kids, their kids are their passion. And although that might feel good and right, I feel like it's a disservice to the kids. Obviously kids want their parents around and to be present and care about them, but I think they also want to look up to their parents for certain characteristics and traits and see that they're living their life even though they had kids.
Hmm.
So yeah, hopefully one day I'll have kids and I'll get to balance that out and sort that out for myself. But as far as bow hunting, like what do you think your average number of days for each hunt, if you broke it out for your season, like looks like? Because I think that's another thing a lot of guys don't really, at least guys that aren't hunting a lot, don't really understand what maybe a realistic view is of going on a bow hunt and actually getting opportunities.
Hmm.
I think even if you're good, like sometimes it happens quick. It could be the first day you show up at an area, but a lot of times it takes that grind.
Yeah, I would say that's a really good, insightful question because you're right. I don't think guys know what it takes.
Hmm.
And with a bow, and when I'm setting my sights high for a trophy animal, it takes days, man. It's
Yeah.
like a lot of my elk seasons end up at 20 days. This year, everything I touched turned to gold and happened pretty quick on both elk hunts, which is always nice. But then struggle with mule deer, and so some of these trips I go to these other states. Yeah, I mean, the first rip, I'll get 8 or 10 days in, and a lot of times I'm having to go back to finish out the hunt.
Yeah.
My late season deer, I killed a great late season buck. He's in the office. I'll show you in there. But I hunted 2 different states, and I hunted probably over 20 days to kill that late season mule deer. Yeah, so a lot of these hunts are taking me, I mean, I would say on average, probably 15 days of hunting. And I'm
Hmm.
fortunate because I live in Montana and I can make multiple rips into country and then kind of reset and then go back at it again. And we have long seasons. But even a lot of these out of state hunts, I'm making multiple rips into country to get it done. And, sometimes that big 7-7 bull this year happened on day 2. I had 14
Yeah.
days worth of food and gear ready to live out there and ready to grind, and it just came together early, and that happens as well. But I'd say on average, probably 10 to 15 days. And then there's my Shiras moose. A couple years back, it's in my home range of the Gravelies. I know it really well. I've seen a ton of moose in there. It's a good unit. I had 30 days to arrow
Yeah.
a bull moose in there. Like, I questioned my sanity on that thing. Like, I started, and I had to watch myself talk. I had this saying, I'm just a crappy moose hunter. I've
Yeah.
been to Alaska, I haven't killed one. I have a Shiras tag, I can't kill one. And I had to just stop the negative self-talk and go, you're a good bow hunter. Like, keep running your program. And it was a combination of master vantage points, still hunting, and also driving roads, and I just had to keep putting forth the effort. I don't know how many thousands of dollars of gas I put in my rig
Yeah.
that year, but 30 days and I killed a good Shiras moose and able to arrow him like it was meant to be. And so, like, a lot of these hunts take a lot of days. I've had bear seasons that take me 50 days to arrow
Yeah.
a giant black
Yeah.
bear. And standardly, these black bear hunts take me 20 to 30 days in the field. And you're right. That's why it's a great question, is I don't think a lot of guys realize that.
Yeah, they see the highlight reel on Instagram and social media and think that, Brian's just rolling out from his house in the afternoon and stroking giants with his bow and it's easy, but it's like there's so much that goes into it that's, it's not uninteresting, but it's not really like that great. Like, no one, like, we're not sharing the like constant filling up the truck and driving out and checking and doing this and that. It's kind of once we found something that, a lot of times we share that stuff. As far as bow hunting goes, there's probably a lot of people that'd be a lot better bow hunters if they could seal the deal. It's even tough for the best bow hunters to, put your arrow on the mark. And I'm sure that there's probably been a lot of misses in your archery career. But before you like get out of your truck on like the first day of a hunt, like to start your season or whatever, like what do you think the most important part of your preparation was when it came to shooting your bow? Because there's so many ways to like slice and dice like how you should be practicing and how you should be getting prepared, but like what kind of stands out to you as like the one thing that I really need to do and lock in before I go hunting with my bow?
I think, I practice a lot. I shoot a lot. I'm really committed to executing good shots. And so, like, I think knowing my bow inside and out, I think shooting 3D targets, shooting with uneven footing, shooting my sight tape with broadheads, like all this preparation I do to know my bow inside and out. So I know the bow's going to perform, and I know that I've shot enough arrows that I have the strength. I can aim really well. I know what a good shot feels like. I know what the sight picture looks like. So I think all of that is super important. And then a lot of it is the mental prep, the visualizations, and how I'm going to go through it, where I can close my eyes and visualize an elk coming out and visualize how I'm going to execute that shot, putting the pin where it needs to be, letting it float, pull until the shot breaks. And I'm going through that prep prior to the season. I'm going through it day one. When I step out of the truck, I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it when I stalk. Like, I've made every mistake in the book with a bow and arrow, and I try to minimize that. And so I try to learn from it, and I try to like harness it. So those visualizations are really important. And then as I'm going through the hunt, I'm like, remember, we got a pole on our shot. When I'm stalking, when I'm going in, like this presence of mind. And then, I think what's helped me the most is like a lot of trigger time. I bow hunt a bunch, and I hunt a bunch of different species, and I've been excited a lot. And I know how to transition my good shooting on targets to being a good shooter on animals. So I really feel like when I get a chance at an animal, I'm going to execute my best shot and put a good arrow in there. And, things can still happen. Animals can move. I can nick a branch. But I've made enough mistakes now where my checklist is pretty good, where I'm not trying to force arrows. I know what the window looks like to put a good arrow in them, and I know I can put that arrow in there. So I'm also stepping out of the truck with an immense amount of confidence, too, that I can execute, make a shot if he's in my effective range. And so I think that's a big part of my preparation going into season.
Sure. I feel like any serious bow hunter gets target panic at some point. I feel like it's this like voodoo thing that guys want to like tiptoe around and not ever talk about. And, you know, you'll listen to guys talk about, you know, even on your podcast, how they approached animals and were shooting, and you can just feel like, yeah, dude still like hasn't gotten over target panic, just the way that he tiptoes around it instead of being like, yeah, I had target panic and then I'm over it now. Like I righted the ship in my brain. When have you had target panic? I'm assuming you have. What was key for you to like understand what it was and how to like break free of it?
Hmm. Yeah, so I definitely had it, and I had it bad. It's like it doesn't come up when you first start bow hunting. Like I was finding success and arrowing critters, and everything was going great. And then all of a sudden, I could not hold my pin where I wanted the arrow to go.
Yeah.
My pin would settle low,
Yeah.
and I was like, man, if I could hold my pin as steady as I do at 6 o'clock on a target, I would be the best shooter in the world.
Sure.
You know, it's just like rock solid right below where I want to hit.
Gets there and
then
won't move.
I'd have to force it up, and I'd have to execute. And so I had to totally like tear down my shooting process, stop choosing when the arrow went, and use like a surprise release on it. I had to reteach myself from the ground up, but I believed in the process and believed I was going to be a better shooter from it. And so, went into like this back tension style of pulling until the shot breaks, and able to start with like a back tension release and then transition that into a thumb, into a hinge. I still have it. I shoot a bunch, and shooting a lot is where you get target panic. And like I've corrected it, I've cured it. I aim right where I want my arrow to go. But if I don't think about it, or if I shoot a lot of indoor where it's 30 arrows, you're trying to shoot a perfect score. And if I'm not paying attention, or I just start running on autopilot, all of a sudden I'm noticing that my pin's starting to fall a little low. And it isn't as low as it used to be. It's not like on the 9 line, but it just doesn't want to hold in that middle. And I have to go, okay, get back to your aiming drills, like put the pin where you want it and pull. Like I have to consciously tell myself to put the pin in the middle and let it aim. And also, like where target panic comes in too is trying to aim too hard. Like you just want it to stay there and want it to be in the middle, but you have to be okay with the float. And it's amazing how many arrows end up in the middle when you're just okay with the float, but it's all around the center of that target. So you're not getting dip bangs where it's dropping and you're trying to force it up. It's not settling low, but it's consciously something I work on. And I even notice on critters, like if I just start to go into autopilot, my pin will start to hold low on an animal too. I have to consciously tell myself in the mind, put the pin where you want it. And I put the pin right in the middle, and then it starts to float around. But if I don't think about it, or if I don't say that step in my head, a lot of times that pin will start to hold low again, and I'm starting to battle that target panic. So it's something I've had and I've been over for like 15 years, but I don't know. It's something that I still have to continue to work on and continue to think about to be a really good shot with my bow, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Target panic isn't like I guess I didn't even really state that right, is like you're not really ever cured from it, because it's just it's a mentality of your body wanting that control, and you have to like be willing to understand that like to create the best possible outcome, I just have to like trust process instead of me wanting to like force it there, you know? And so it's like, it's always going to be a battle, even if you've like overcome it in a large way, you know, like I still, I have a great process now, and I think I have a really good clarity in my brain, even when I'm hunting animals. But there still have been times where like you're on that animal and it's floating, and like maybe it's not going, and those freaking warning sirens like hammer it, you know. And you're like, you know.
That's totally
to where
it.
like still occasionally, like I've definitely had some that I got away with where it was like I did everything right, and then it just didn't go off when I wanted it to, and I kind of like forced it a little bit, and you're like, oh, like it was pretty good. Like I got 99.5% of the way, and then I kind of screwed it up and got away with it. Because it is tough to get interactions on animals. Like that's what's the beauty of bow hunting is like there's nothing easy about it. But yeah, I had to like I've battled it for 2 or 3 years. Like I would cheat my sight tape so I could hold low. I tried all the things. I would try different releases, and like I would force myself to like, hey, I got to count to 6 while I'm holding on target before I can shoot it, knowing that I'd probably shoot at like 3. Dude, I did some crazy stuff. And then I would shoot like a back tension and a hinge, and dude, you can punch those too. Like when I first started shooting a hinge, like I punched the crap out of it. And it was at that point where it was like, dude, you just have to like, I don't remember what it was that I did. It was just a lot of struggle. But like I finally got to the point where I had told myself enough that I needed to create this process that I actually created it. But it was like, yeah, that's probably the worst part of bow hunting is when that happens because you just want to like quit entirely. Like there's nothing fun about getting that perfect opportunity and then just royally screwing it up.
Just
like,
the worst.
Like a rookie. You're just like, oh, what the heck is wrong with me?
Oh, dude, it's the worst. Yeah, what the heck is wrong with me?
Yes.
You work so hard to get to those points, and it's just an easy shot, and you duff it because you punch it or because your pin isn't in the right spot, and you're like, I am the biggest idiot on planet Earth.
Yeah.
It's the worst feeling, and it cuts so deep that eventually you get to your bottom where you're like, no more, never again. I don't care if I never kill another animal. I am not punching this off. Like I am either going to kill this animal and execute correctly, or I am not going to shoot. And you kind of get to that breaking point, but I think it takes screwing up a ton and feeling like you're about an inch tall. It is not easy to go through.
No. And it's also tough. I think having hunts filmed helps understand like the scenario sometimes when you do miss an animal. Like I missed an antelope probably like 4 years ago now, where like I thought I executed a shot well, but it went high and I wasn't sure, did I like punch it a little bit at the end? And then like looked at the footage later and was like, oh, like the thing actually ducked my arrow. Like, okay, like I did make a good shot. 'Cause sometimes like when you miss, you're like, like it felt good, but what did I do something like kind of jacked up? Did I actually punch it? Did I, like at the last second? Or even last year, before I killed my bull, I actually hit a different bull in the backstrap, which was a super bummer, but it's that hindsight of 2020 of, hey, I just like cut this bull off that was cross on this flat and didn't quite cut him off. There were cows that had come through with a different bull, which is how I got into that position. And I think one of the cows had just barely caught me visually, didn't smell me or anything, and just kind of like knew something was a little up, which is what altered their course. And so when this other bull came through, I had the vision that like, hey, he's going to go where those cows went, but those cows naturally probably wouldn't have went there. They probably would have hung up above kind of the top of the coulee if they hadn't kind of felt like something was over there. And so he came behind me and I could hear him like up above. Like I was kind of tucked down in this cut and was like, oh crap. Like he came behind me. And so I jumped up and he kind of ran out to like 45 and drew, and he stood there and like, rather than being like, oh, I just bumped this animal out, even though it's an elk, I should hold low. 'Cause he's already like all tensed up, ready for something. Like he doesn't know what's going on, to where like that bull, I executed a good shot, but like he just immediately dropped on me, which, I've had mule deer do it. I've had antelope do it. I've seen elk just stand there and take it, and not drop. But I've also had them drop like that, where it was like, dude, the elk's vitals was pretty big. Like, why didn't you shade it low? Like, now thinking about it, it's like this animal's on high alert. You should probably like hold low and kind of give yourself a little room for air in case that animal does jump. And if they don't, it's still an elk where you have that flexibility to just like, and that's where I think experience as a bow hunter comes into play. And it's just like, it's always going to be tough, but the more you can do those things, it didn't even come down to executing a good shot. It came down to like not thinking the situation through, because it happened so fast, to be like, where should I actually aim here? Because if you aim mid-body, which like I tend to generally like to be a little like mid body, because those lungs do go back. Like that's where I've killed a lot of bulls, and it's worked so well. But then like you don't think about the situation. You aim there and he ducks a little bit, and now you're like, didn't get the lungs, and now you're chasing a bull that is bleeding, and you want to do your due diligence, which he didn't die. I found him the next day and chased him around again.
Yep.
And should have killed him, had him bedded in some great spots, and didn't, and ran him out of the country. But yeah, bow hunting it's my favorite thing to do. I'm sure you would say the same thing.
Hindsight's a beautiful thing too. Like you reflect, and then that gets downloaded into your hard drive, which the next time you make decisions you might hold a little low, but that stuff also just happens. That is bow hunting.
For sure.
Strange things happen. You shoot animals at one angle, and then you get up to them, they're dead, and you're like, man, that wasn't the angle he was standing. The arrow came out totally in front of the hind quarter, or came out in front of the chest. Like strange things happen, and animals roll around, and I think that is part of it. I chased a giant buck last year in the early season. I chased him for 5 days, finally put myself in the perfect place, bedded looking away from me, and I whispered to my cameraman, I'm like, hey, we're going to shoot him right here. And I held my mouth up like this to kind of push my voice to make sure it didn't hit him. And my cameraman said, where is he at? In a whisper, but no hand, and pointed right to me. And I look back around the tree, and that buck's looking right up at me, staring straight up at me at 56 yards. I waited for what seemed like 5 minutes, which it was a couple minutes, but the buck started to move off. I was behind some branches, had a good range, came to full draw. He stopped broadside, just perfect. 56 yards, here we go. Pull, 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 shot broke. Arrow was coming in, and as soon as he heard that bow, he was out of there. Like the arrow hit behind his butt. And then for the rest of the hunt, like I found that buck. He was a great 190 incher, had a couple stickers on him, just a great buck. But he just hung in the buck brush. Like I spent a whole day with him inside 120 yards. He just won't come out of the buck brush. I finally had to leave that buck and go find another one. I just wasn't going to get him killed. He's just a smart old buck, and that was my one chance at him. And it's just bow hunting. So then you break it down in hindsight, and you're like, okay, I need to have a talk with these cameramen. It's like, cover your voice. Like, we need to be nonverbal in these situations. These mule deer have big ears. This isn't the first time this has happened to me. Like, we need to be diligent and disciplined in these situations, because that buck would have died if he didn't hear a whisper up and through there. So it's like you just learn from that.
Yeah, that's something that I've thought about in your situation, just being a guy who's filmed a lot of hunts and kind of is in the know on who's who. It seems like you've had a lot of different filmers over the years. How do you vet out who's filming for you? Why have you used a lot of different filmers? Some guys have one that they've just had for years. Like, what does that process look like for you as far as filming your hunts? Like, I would say you're in a tougher position than a lot of people, because you have used a lot of new to you at least, film guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have the biggest budget, which hurts me. Like that is definitely part of it as well, as like I've got to find the up and comers and not the established guys, which I would love to have the established guys, but the way I bow hunt, I need days. And so I'm paying for a ton of filming days, and pretty soon I'm upside down in the film because it takes so many days. So I've got to find the new up and comers. I like have I push really hard. Like I'm driven, and it's not all about arrowing that animal, but to me, I'm going to give my full effort, and I have been running all year, and I've been thinking about bow hunting. It means everything to me, so I push and drive really hard, and my style of hunting is a minimalist backpack style hunting, and so it tends to break a lot of guys, or they won't come out and say it, but I usually get them for one hunt, and the next time I try to line them up, they're like, nah, I'm busy, I'm booked, and so like it's like kind of my reputation there at Eastman's. They're always telling me, don't break this one, we want to use them again, and it's like, well, it's tough, we're going to go hard, whether him breaking is not up to me, it's like it's up to him, and anybody can do it. It's just setting their mind to it and going through tough times, and they have to want it. They have to want to create a film as much as I want to kill this animal. animal and we work together to create a great film, but it is not going to be easy with me. We're going to be leaving the truck at 3 a.m. We're going to be hunting really hard.
Yeah.
We're going to be living in the dirt. We may run out of water. Like, I'm trying to manage my cameraman's water consumption because there's no water around and we got to try to live up there for 5 days. And so it is not easy. So they have to go into it with the right mindset.
Yeah.
So I think I'm just really tough on cameramen.
Yeah, I've definitely broke a few, but it's like probably the first question I have is like, hey, like, send me something from like a backpack hunt. Like, if you haven't done one, like, I get you're good with the camera, but it doesn't really matter if all of a sudden, like, we can't hunt because your feet are blistered to hell and like you can't move, or like you're just too exhausted. It's like, that was another big thing at Stone Glacier, was like just trying to vet guys that could actually go hang with someone like yourself and not drastically impact the hunt, be in the same physical fitness as you or in the ballpark to where, hey, like, Barney's hunt is as least impacted as possible by having a cameraman there, because that ends up being the best look into what it is you do or some guy does on the mountain, versus working with someone that just isn't well versed in the mountain. It does alter how you have to hunt. And I feel like getting as close to the unaltered state has like always been my goal. So
I like
you
the way you
definitely
put that. I think I should have asked you that question. You're really good at vetting cameraman, building really good films, and you go really hard. I think I could learn a thing or two by how you vet these guys out. But yeah, I've got some good guys that I trust now, and I've had a lot of cameramen do really well and capture some hunts, and sometimes it's only one or two hunts, and then
Yeah.
they're like, I don't know if I like this deal, but yeah, I think I've had some really good guys and really gritty guys be my cameraman that are willing to produce a film, and it's a great opportunity for these guys. They can build a name for themselves, and they can build upon that and
Yeah.
get future work, and so it's like such a great opportunity for these guys to work in the outdoor space. So they just need to come with toughness and grit and want it. And so I try to vet that out in the conversations that we have to make sure that they're all in. But ultimately, like, a lot of times, just have to get them out on the mountain. But I think you do a really good job of it. I think I could learn a thing or two.
Yeah. I mean, I've obviously been in front of the camera, but I've spent a lot of time making the films, and even just investing in my own brand. So it's a little easier to justify those days. But yeah, it's like just the base cost on these films is pretty big. I don't really like to film. If I'm making a real hunting film, like, I don't really like to spend less than minimum 7 days. 7 to 10 is kind of the sweet spot. And the elk hunt I did last year, I spent like 20 some days in the unit, which there were at least 10 film days with a film guy. And then I was filming, when I was out there self-filming. And then when I did my Wyoming deer hunt, I had 20 days on the mountain with at least probably 10 camera guy days. What's up, dude? We're just podcasting.
Yeah.
Dylan just showed up, so we're
Right
going to have to
on.
wrap it up soon. But yeah, it's like the cost is pretty huge. And that's even for us, relaunching Montana Wild is like, that's always the challenge. It's like actually funding and making money on films is challenging, and that's probably why you see a lot of the YouTube content being very low budget, kind of handy cam-esque, vloggy, like simple edits, because it's easy to throw guys on a camera and just tell them to hit record and point and shoot it there, and and we'll make something out of it. But I think that's always been kind of our niche, and our way we've differentiated ourselves is like investing the time to do it right. Like, it always shows up in the end product. It's
Yeah.
just it's a challenge to make it work when you start penciling like ones and zeros.
It's fun to hear about. Yeah. Your films are on another level. Yeah. You can definitely see that come through in your films, in your skill level, in your budgets, in your, like, man, it's the films are absolutely incredible. And that's the goal, is to try to produce something like that. But it's like anything. It takes a lot of time
Yeah.
learning your field. Like you are a leader when you're field producing, and I've
Yeah.
taken some away from that as well as I've seen you produce and run these cameramen and what you want and the shots you want. Like you're
Yeah.
very intentional with
Yeah.
what you're capturing and what you're getting. And so, I've definitely taken away from that and try to be a good field producer. And also, it's like when I first started doing it, I do like the biggest, coolest adventures. I'm going to make the best films. And that doesn't translate when you come out and you didn't get all the shots, or they turn on the camera and you forget how to talk into a camera. Like you don't
Yeah.
have much when you come home, And so it's taken doing a lot of these things and improving my craft of being in front of the camera, talking into it, explaining it, and also like trying to add value to these films is
Mhm.
not just being entertainment, but to be educational, to show people what's available, the opportunities out there as you're bow hunting as well. And so, I've kind of got this bigger purpose for my films and trying to capture these things. But yeah, it's taken a lot of time and a lot of subpar films. Like not really. They're just like I just watch them and it's like, that could have been better. Could have got some more shots here. Man, a cool time lapse would have been good right there.
Yeah.
Like and so then just when I go out in the field, like planning for success is a big thing for me. Is like I'm planning to build a film and be successful, and so I'm intentional throughout the film to try to capture all these shots to put it together. So when magic happens, day 5, day 7, we have a really good film built, and we're not trying to go back and recreate a bunch of stuff or
Yeah.
trying to get a bunch of shots to build a film. So that's been huge for me, but it's not easy. You are the top of the heap in putting these films together and can definitely learn from guys like you and the way you put them together.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I'm excited to build a bunch of content with kind of myself as the boss and the like guy that calls the shots. At Stone Glacier, I had a really cool situation where I got to call the shots for 97% of what I did. But when you're representing a brand that's not yours, there's a loose box of kind of where you need to live and exist and how you need to do things where, not that we're going to do anything crazy edgy, but like now I just do it the way that I want to do it, that I think is going to be best. And I think a lot of younger guys, they're pretty unwilling to just go like, you kind of got to have passion projects. Like this fishing film we're working on, like I'll have at least, probably 7 days invested into it and money spent on, some new pieces of gear and all my stuff and editing. And it's like, I haven't solicited a single sponsor. Like obviously it's for Montana Wild and there'll be some benefit there, but it's like, it's a passion project. And it's like, those are the things that like really help you creatively, but also give you kind of some work to, I think, sets up other work,
Yes.
It's like, hey, look at this thing I did, which usually when it's a passion project, it comes out pretty dang cool because it was like, you just did it for the love of it.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the things that are special. And yeah, it's hard to maintain that because you can get like life. It's easy for life to get really busy, and like, I just got to do this, and this, and I don't have time for it, which fortunately right now is kind of a chapter in my life where the time's there. But yeah, like I just finished editing a coyote film that I filmed with my buddy Brad. That was also just like, I just want to go do this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just want to get back in the saddle again. It was fun. Like, it just kind of like keeps those juices flowing, which there's juices flowing for today. I think we'll probably have to wrap this up and we'll do another podcast for, for probably touching on some of that spring bear stuff, which is even driving down here. Like I love fishing. I'm amped for today, but like I'm just seeing all the tracks because we've gotten quite a bit of snow in all these areas and just like, just like thinking about hunting already is like, those juices never stop flowing. I don't need much to like, revitalize that. But yeah, the creative side of things is something that it will ebb and flow. But yeah. I'm pumped to like spend a little more time with you and Dylan who showed up here and like film some stuff. And I'm sure some of that will translate into some of the things you do in the fall and be cool to film a hunt with you at some point.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep. No, I think like the important takeaway of what you said, like the passion projects, the love for it and the love for the game, like you can't lose that and you can't fake it, you know?
Yeah.
And so like when you have that love for bow hunting, for fly fishing, for when you have this passion where the juices are constantly flowing, like you put your everything into them, like success finds you, you know. And same thing with these films and these passion projects. And I love what you said, how you know it's right now, you know, you're going to spend money to put this thing together, but
Mhm.
when we get done and the end project is you know, it we're going to be able to build off that to something greater, you know.
Yeah.
And so like realizing that, like reinvesting in yourself, reinvesting in your brand, that's how I built this whole outdoor career,
Yeah.
was doing things for free, writing for free, podcasting for free, filming for free. I did way too much for free, but I believed in myself.
Yeah.
I believed in my product. And once I proved myself, I built value, and then I could charge money for what I was doing. And the money just came in. And it wasn't because I was chasing the dollar, it was because I
Yeah.
was chasing my love and passion.
Yeah. I think that's a good point because it's like I've been in the industry for over a decade now and done a lot of great things or whatever you want to call it. But it's like I'm still at square one, like this podcast, like just investing in it. I know there's value, but like you still got to put in the legwork, even if you've been in the industry, even if you've done all these things. Like there's no ever like, I just made it and I'm on cruise control. Like you either are hungry and you want it or you don't. And I think that's just how life always is, or it should be. Like just even thinking about like retirement, like I don't ever want to retire. Like I'd like to be financially retired where I'm not like having to grind to pay my bills, you know, but like I think work is good for human beings and for everybody. And yeah, even if you've done a lot, it's like if you're not willing to put in the work, like you're probably just not going to be successful. So
Nailed it.
yeah. Well, let's go out on the river and put some more work in. And thanks for jumping on the podcast, Brian.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yep.
Anytime.